Max Scherzer returns to the Toronto Blue Jays to pitch Wednesday, tomorrow. I got a lot of thoughts. I got a lot of feelings. Carter, I also got a question for you and the listeners. Think about this as we sort of go through today's show. How confident are you in the starting pitching for a Game 1 starter in the playoffs? I want you to ponder that for a bit.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Or the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
As always, I'm Braden Iwasko. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5Iwasko. Carter First, too, as well, on our main one, at Locked On Jays, on Twitter, at Locked On Jays, and Instagram, TikTok, both at Locked On Blue Jays. And if you're new here to YouTube, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. It helps us out a ton. Really, it does. It's free. It's easy. It really isn't hard at all. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. It helps us out a ton. You get your podcasts, your shorts, your live streams, your videos, the whole ordeal. And if you're listening anywhere else, we appreciate that as well. Carter, lot to get into. Max Scherzer makes his return to the Toronto Blue Jays tomorrow. We want to talk about this more in depth, coming off an off day for the Toronto Blue Jays yesterday. No game to cover. Plus, my question, how confident are you in this pitching group for Game 1 of a playoff series? Because I think that leads us into the question about what do the Toronto Blue Jays need at the deadline. So we'll talk about all that, plus series preview. We'll get into all that in the third segment. But Carter, my man, we didn't know if he would ever pitch for the Toronto Blue Jays again. Max Scherzer is back. How do you feel?
Uncertain is definitely one word that I would use to describe this situation, because it's definitely nice to see Max Scherzer coming back. But I'm just going to get right into the quote that kind of didn't make me feel that good after the news broke that Max Scherzer is coming back. So Max Scherzer threw a bullpen. This would have been on Sunday. He threw a bullpen between 30 and 40 pitches. Confirmed he'll pitch Wednesday, obviously. But this is what he had to say to Hazel May and Shai Davidi after that bullpen session. He says, "My stuff is fine. I'm trying everything I can to manage this thumb and make sure I can recover. There's no knowing. I just have to get out there." It's been 3 months and he still doesn't know. Like this, I mean, it hasn't even been 3 months. It's been like a year and a half with this injury at this point. I knew we were taking a risk on Max Scherzer when they made this signing. $15.5 million, a big risk to take on a guy like Max Scherzer. But I said, if you can get like 100 to 125 innings from Max Scherzer, that's going to be really good. At this point, now, if we can get 40 innings from Max Scherzer, I'm going to be pretty happy with what he's doing. He has had some 75, 80 pitch workloads in this buildup, so he does have the ability to throw those pitches, and he does the ability to be stretched out. It's just, how is the thumb going to respond to the workload? How's the thumb going to respond to being inserted back into a rotation? Probably almost every single start. You want this guy to be a regular guy. Maybe you are a little bit more on the lenient side. Maybe you skip a start from time to time. You can have that bullpen day. But overall, I'm not necessarily feeling the greatest about this, but I guess a lot of questions will be answered in that Wednesday start.
Well, and that's all this is, right? After all of this time of, will he, won't he pitch again? And I think the answer is I think we all expected him to at least come back and try. And that's where we're at. Now it's, how does it go, right? Because I think if Max Scherzer goes out there and is, the thumb isn't hurting and it isn't affecting him the next couple days, well, then I think you can expect to see exactly what Max Scherzer has always been. But it all comes back down to, can he be healthy? And we just don't know the answer to that, and we won't. I'm very, very pleased that we will get to see him. But if this goes down a bad path and it turns out Max Scherzer is done, that's going to be tough to swallow, because now you're not only short Bowden Francis, but we're sort of using a bullpen day right now. And I hate to say that. Spencer Turnbull was not good. And Eric Lauer has been good. He has been very good. But how long can that keep up? So the need for Max Scherzer to be healthy and available right now is massive. It could end up being a turning point of the season if Max Scherzer comes back and is good. Is it going to throw this team so many games over 500? No. But I think it gives you a lot more leeway than when you don't have them and you're down two guys.
Well, and if Max Scherzer can be effective, which when he did pitch in 2024, he was effective. It's just how much length you're going to get out of Max Scherzer. we're at the point with this team where you brought it up, I think, a couple months ago at this point, where if you can even get 3 innings now from Max Scherzer opposed to nothing, like that's something, unfortunately, you might have to settle for. People aren't going to love that whatsoever. We're not going to love that, especially if Max Scherzer is dominating and then all of a sudden he gets 45 pitches. He's like, oh, my thumb's hurt. If I keep throwing, I'm going to get injured again, even though, again, he's been hurt the entire season. So I think as a fan base, like the leash with Max Scherzer is not going to be that long. There's a lot of animosity, obviously, going towards Max Scherzer. Being one of the main offseason acquisitions, get $15.5 million is not a little bit of money. That is quite a bit of money to spend on a 40-year-old starting pitcher. So the haters are having field days with this one, saying it's one of the worst signings of all time. I mean, I'm not even going to get into that aspect of it, but I'm at the point where I'm not going to wish bad on Max Scherzer. Like, this is a guy that has won multiple Cy Youngs, probably will easily be a Hall of Famer. Got this guy on the Toronto Blue Jays. So it'll just be a cool experience to see this guy pitch, more than 3 innings for this baseball club. You just got to hope for the best, be optimistic, because unfortunately right now, the way things stand, you don't really have a lot of other options. You have Bowden Francis, who's on the IL, probably going to come off at some point. Then AAA, you don't really have a lot of options down there whatsoever. You have some bullpen arms you can go to, nothing in a long relief or like lengthy role for a starting pitcher. And then you got Spencer Turnbull, who couldn't even necessarily get it done against the Chicago White Sox. So how confident does that leave you? So you're right. There is a big reliance right now on Max Scherzer to come in and at least be serviceable. And the trade deadline will open up a lot of questions as well. Who are the Toronto Blue Jays going to target? Are they going to target an ace on their starting staff? Are they going to target anyone on their starting staff? Is it going to be bullpen? Is it going to be power bats? There is a lot that is going to kind of unfold in front of us. But if Max Scherzer can be, I'm not even going to say dependent, if he can just be okay, if you can go out there and, give the Blue Jays a chance to win and not completely throw away baseball games, then I think that's something that we're going to be okay with as a Toronto Blue Jays fan base, with everything considered, with all the injury stuff.
Well, and again, right, we have these conversations about, guys coming back from injury and whatever else. But and this is tough to say, but imagine what this team could be with Berrios, Bassitt, Gausman, a healthy Max Scherzer, and the return of Alek Manoah. But the problem is with talking about Max Scherzer and Alek Manoah, it's 2 guys coming off injuries that you're not really sure what they're going to bring to the table. And I am more than stoked for the return of Alek Manoah eventually. I'm over the moon. I cannot wait. Max Scherzer, on the other hand, I think I'm sad because if it goes poorly, yeah, it's going to be a conversation of what does this team do next? Because can you justify rolling out 3 guys? Well, and again, depending on Erik Lauer.
You're not giving, I think, Erik Lauer enough respect. Yeah, he has been very good for the Toronto Blue Jays.
He has been very good. But when will the other shoe drop and them start to pick up on what he's doing? Or will that happen? I don't know. But I can't hang my hat on the fact, praying to God, that Erik Lauer can keep up a 2.40 ERA all season. That just isn't going to happen.
I'll push back on that a little bit. You don't need Erik Lauer to have a 2.4 ERA for the entire season. He's your fifth. He should be your 5th starter. You get Max Scherzer, Alek Manoah, maybe a trade deadline piece in here. Erik Lauer being your 5th starter, I think, is going to be something that's fine. A lot of people should be okay with that, especially what he has been doing. Not every team has a good 5th starter, and Erik Lauer, I think, is more than serviceable enough. So I think you can't really throw ricochets here at Erik Lauer. It's more so Francis hasn't been good, and Max Scherzer just, again, has not, unfortunately, been reliable for this baseball team.
And it's not, I'm not trying to throw shade at Erik Lauer, but I think when you're looking at a drop-off, or expected, even if you expect Erik Lauer to be a 4.5 ERA guy, or whatever, even a 5 ERA guy, honest to God, are you thrilled about that? No. I think you're more thrilled if you can have a healthy Max Scherzer and a healthy Alek Manoah. That 5, in comparison to what we currently have, is an astronomical difference. That's more so the point. It's not that Erik Lauer's bad, but again, I'm waiting. I'm a little bit of a baseball realist here. Erik Lauer hasn't done enough yet for me to say this is Erik Lauer or Erik Lauer's fine, because I don't know. In 2 games, that could be where everybody figures them out and the guys just start blasting them. I don't know enough yet. And again, I don't know a whole lot about what Max Scherzer is going to bring. I don't know a whole lot about what Alek Manoah is going to be back when he's back. But at the end of the day, I've seen at least stuff from those 2 guys to know that they can be very good pitchers. So if they come back, the difference between what we have currently and what we could have in, say, a month or 2's time could be huge. Absolutely massive. If you're rolling out those 5 starters, on back-to-back days, I think you're always in a position to win baseball games.
See, one thing we have been talking about with the starting staff, though, is just the uncertainty that everyone has been providing. Erik Lauer has provided some stability and some certainty. Alek Manoah hasn't pitched in over a year. Max Scherzer, like, you have no idea what this guy's going to do when he goes out there, how many innings he's going to pitch, how many pitches he's going to throw, how effective he's going to be. He has been good in AAA, but do the rehab starts really matter in the grand scheme of things? It's more so you're looking for velo, you're looking for stuff, you're looking for just how they're approaching these at-bats. So with Erik Lauer, you've seen what he can do literally last week. Whereas a lot of these other guys, Max Scherzer, you haven't seen since March. Alek Manoah, you haven't seen since the year before. I completely agree that these guys provide you more upside than Erik Lauer. And I think you'd be a lot more comfortable if you can get consistent stuff from Max Scherzer, from Alek Manoah, throwing them in bigger situations. Like if we're looking at the bigger picture, this team wants to be a playoff team. You probably do have Bassitt, Berrios, and Gausman locked in as your top three guys, barring any trade deadline acquisitions. But you're going to need a fourth starting pitcher, whether that's Max Scherzer, whether that's Alek Manoah. I would be more comfortable if we're in that scenario and John Schneider is willing to go to a guy like Alek Manoah or Max Scherzer rather than a guy like Erik Lauer, just because, again, of the upside. And maybe there's a little bit of name value that goes into that as well. But we've seen how good Alek Manoah can be. We've seen how good Max Scherzer can be. But that's the question. That's the thing. It's a big if on what these guys are going to be able to do for this baseball team. And that kind of leads us into the next segment on some trade deadline acquisitions, what this team is going to target. But before we get into that, I'm just going to leave you with one more question about Max Scherzer.
Sure.
Just overall for the rest of the season, like what is your expectation from Max Scherzer? Like give me like an innings pitch total, like maybe how many starts he's going to provide for this baseball team. Well, on Tuesday or on for the Wednesday episode for that start, we'll go over like the stat line we think Max Scherzer is going to produce. But just overall for the full entirety of the season, what are your expectations for Max Scherzer?
Well, Carter, in saying that, we're halfway through the season. Max Scherzer has pitched in 3 innings, 1 game, and what am I hoping for? I don't know. Be fine. Give us 4 innings of work every time you go out there. Don't over push yourself. Keep us above water. Keep our head above water until Alek Manoah gets back. And hopefully Bowden Francis can figure it out and be back to normal. But right now, it's more just a tide me over. That's what I'm expecting. So to give you an answer, I don't have one. I don't have a good answer because I have no clue what Max Scherzer is going to give you. And I can be excited because, again, we're seeing Max Scherzer in a Blue Jays uniform. I'm allowed to be excited about that, but also very, very nervous and weary. So a total, Carter, to be honest with you, he could go out there on Wednesday tomorrow, pitch 3 innings, get injured, and call it a season, possibly a career. That's also the flip side.
Yeah,
so
that's about as bad as it could probably go for the Toronto Blue Jays. If Max Scherzer just, maybe hangs them up. Maybe middle of the inning, like middle of the at-bat. Just like, my thumb hurts. Well, I'm getting out of here. Like, that's it. We're done. We've made our money. We've got our accolades here. Screw it. We don't need to be on the Toronto Blue Jays anymore. You got to pay me anyway. I mean, let's just run it. But, I mean, he's not in a bad spot. I would find him. I'm going to the IL if that's the scenario. And I travel to states. And for, getting paid to travel to states and, maybe go in the booth with like Joe Siddle, maybe Buck and Dan when they're up there. Maybe just have some commentary going for the Toronto Blue Jays. For me, if he can make like 10 starts, even like 7 starts, kind of where we're at. Because like I looked at just Jose Berrios, Kevin Gausman, those guys have made around 16 starts. That's about halfway through the season, obviously. I'm not expecting Max Scherzer to make 16 starts, not start every single game. But if he can get, I'm going to say 8. I'll throw it at 8. Let's give us 8 starts. If they can be around 5 innings apiece. So I want 40 innings from Max Scherzer. I started out between 100 and 125. We've come a long way since then. It has not been very good for what I expected from Max Scherzer. So give me 8 starts and 40 innings. I'll be definitely happy. Just with, again, just how cool it would be to see Max Scherzer pitch for the Toronto Blue Jays. As long as he's okay. He can even be below average. I think we're still going to be all right here.
Carter, give me 5 innings on Wednesday and call it a career. That's all I want. We'll take a quick break. We do want to come back. Like, again, I told you I was to ponder a question before the episodes really got underway. I want you to think about that now because, Carter, I am going to ask you along those lines a question that'll lead us into probably a pretty big conversation in regarding the 2025 trade deadline. Today's episode brought to you by Bichette. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra and Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Bichette Ready. Bichette Ready is the next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiette is a 3-in-1 formula, dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. Head to rougiette.com/lockedonmlb and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/lockedonmlb and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compound drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but not FDA approved, and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiette website for full safety information. Okay, so the question that I wanted to ask you, Carter, here, and I have to because it's something that's been on my brain, and I know you brought it up really early in this season. I think it might have even been in the offseason, is do we have a number one guy right now? Do you have a guy that you're like, yes, this is the guy I want in game one of the playoffs? I think we have a lot of game 2, game 3 guys, right? If I think any of these guys that you're throwing out into, well, Berrios and Gausman, if you're throwing either of them out into a game 2, you're more than thrilled about that. But for game 1, your number one guy, who are you super, super confident in that's going to go out there and be a sealed, like a stamp on the game that's going to go out there and be a difference maker every time he goes out there that you can trust? Do we have a guy that you're willing to do that with right now? Because I'm going to say no.
Yeah, absolutely not. I've been kind of harping on this for the last couple of episodes. Actually, when you go and look at even in the AL, like you don't need Kevin Gausman, Jose Berrios, Chris Bassitt. You'd love them to be like a guy like Tyreek Escobar, like the Paul Skeens, whatever. You don't necessarily need that, but I don't think you have a guy like going against a lot of these other teams' aces. Like if you're going against Nathan Eovaldi from the Rangers, if you're going against Garrett Crochet, if you're going against Max Fried, for example, like you can keep going down the line. And there's a lot of guys that I don't necessarily think, especially in a game 1 scenario, that this team matches up with in that instance. And in the wild card series, all it takes is 2 games and there goes your season. So if you drop the first game, you probably do have the advantage in the second. And then I would say for sure in the third game, but do you want it to go to that point? Do you want to play with your back against the wall? Have to throw all of your guys in that spot? Again, that's what you're going to have to do in a lot of these playoff scenarios. Like you're not having that safety net anymore, but the way Kevin Gausman specifically has been pitching, I think right now, like if you're looking at this team, that's probably the guy that you would roll with in that number 1 spot. I don't really know how you go away from that, but you're not seeing a lot of the swing and miss that we're accustomed to seeing from Kevin Gausman. From the years of 2019 all the way up to 2023, never had a Ks per 9 below 10. In the last 2 years, 8.06 in 2024. This season has been 8.79. Hitters are laying off the splitter. Kevin Gausman, the stuff has been starting to slow it down just a tick. I'm not sure if it's like actual stuff. I'm not sure if it's coming with age, or maybe people are just starting to figure out Kevin Gausman. I'm pretty sure it looks like a stuff thing just from the eye test. But like if you have Kevin Gausman, for example, like in a wild card series that you could have going even against Joe Ryan from the Twins, is that a matchup that you're really loving in that scenario, especially with just the history of the Twins? Maybe the Twins is a bad example because they kind of eat Kevin Gausman alive. But yeah, I'm not exactly confident, at least in the pitching matchups in that first game of a series. No matter who you play in the AL, I think the other team is going to have a big pitching advantage. But my only issue with this is that you look kind of across the board, you look ahead to these trade deadline acquisitions. For one, if you have a team that is so far out of the playoffs that they're already going to be sellers, they probably don't have a number 1 ace unless you're the Pittsburgh Pirates. I don't really think the Toronto Blue Jays will be in contention to get Paul Skeens. If he's even moved, I think the Pirates are absolutely insane if they move a guy like Paul Skeens. So just looking at the market, I don't really know if you have that number 1 ace available unless you make some, mysterious trade that kind of comes out of left field that we're not necessarily expecting. I think if you're looking at the trade deadline, if you're looking at the market right now, you do have some guys that can be a number 2 guy, number 3 guy, a ton of guys that can be a number 4 or 5 guy. But this team, for me, for sure lacks an ace, and I don't necessarily think that they'll be able to fix it at this trade deadline.
I sort of agree with you. I think it's going to be very tough to find a guy and justify it if you bring somebody in to be like, yeah, we're pitching you game 1 of the playoffs. When you have Kevin Gausman and Jose Berrios, 2 guys you are probably looking to go with right now. So it's a big question. And I think, to be honest, if there is an option to get a number 1 guy at the deadline, again, a guy that pops up for me and recency bias a little bit is the Diamondbacks. I think that could be an option for this team to approach for a trade for either Merrill Kelly or Zach Gallen. Now, does Merrill Kelly become a number one guy? No, I don't think so. I think you still roll out then Kevin Gausman or Jose Berrios day one. But it does give you some more option. But if you get Zach Gallen, that's probably a number one guy. That's probably a guy that I'd go out there game one.
He's been bad this year, though, man. That's the thing. Like, he is on an expiring contract, but like the guy's got a whip of 1.4, 5.6 ERA. Like, the stuff just hasn't been very good this year. Depends what you're giving up for a guy like Zach Gallen, but if you're going to give up the farm for a guy that hasn't even been good this year, then you make this trade and he puts up a stinker for the rest of the year, and then you lose him to free agency anyway. That's not going to be something that people are going to be very happy about, especially the casual fans. They're quickly going to look up as, Savant or whatever it ends up being, and they're going to see a lot of blue, and they're going to see that he has not been very good this year. I think that would be a harder trade to justify. Again, depending on what you are giving up. Maybe the Diamondbacks are completely out on Zach Gallen. Don't necessarily know how you get to that point in one season. But I just don't know, again, for what you're going to have to give up to get a guy with, again, that uncertainty. I think if you're going to make a trade for the Toronto Blue Jays team with the starting pitching, the way it's currently set up, you want a guy that you're certain can give you some competitive innings. Not necessarily sure if Zach Gallen can do that. Merrill Kelly can probably do that. But it's kind of like, that's like adding another Jose Berrios. Not a bad thing necessarily.
Yeah.
But that's definitely not that ace transaction that you would want to be wanting for a game one of a playoff series.
Well, and that's what's tough around all of this, because I agree with you. I think that he obviously hasn't had the season he wanted, but I do think that he can be that guy if you bring him in. Now, again, it is a little bit of a risk, and yeah, it could be another situation that people get pretty pissed off with. But I think, again, if you're saying that this is the year and the AL is open, you got to take shots at some point. You're not going to go out and sign, Max Fried. You're not going to get him. So you're going to have to take a little bit of a shot. You're going to have to expand your sort of thinking on what you want to happen here. And I'm not talking about you specifically. I mean, the Toronto Blue Jays. But that is the question. I don't know. I don't know what the right move is here, because is there a point of going to add another, 3-2-3 guy right now with Alek, Manoah coming back with the three guys you already have? I don't know. I don't know if it'd be worth it. But then I look, okay, does this team need another position player, a hitter? Yeah, they could add there too, but where and from who? It's a little bit wild right now. A little bit of me thinks, man, we're finally starting to see the farm system become a farm system again. And are we going to dump everything? But also, I'd like to see this team go for it. I don't know, man. I'm happy I'm not the one making these decisions.
Yeah, it's a tough sell, especially for a guy like Zach Gallen, just going back to that. At this point, with the uncertainty that Zach Gallen's carrying, would you not just rather go with one of your guys, not give up assets, maybe hope that Alek Manoah can come and return to some sort? Maybe Kevin Gausman finds that swing and miss stuff. I think that's a lot more of a reliable option, and just like there's way less risk that you're carrying over this as well. If you're going to give up a ton of assets for a guy that has not been very good, I think you'd much rather just hope that Alek Manoah can figure it out, hope that Kevin Gausman can figure something out. So it's going to be a tough decision, and a lot is going to have to be figured out, because really there's only a couple teams that are like clear-cut sellers. A lot of fringe teams right now. Like the Royals might be a seller at the trade deadline. The Rangers aren't sure what they want to do. The Diamondbacks in a very tough division, but that's not a bad baseball team either. So we'll have some more clarity, and we'll have some more clarity in the options that will be kind of available to the Toronto Blue Jays. But that's the thing, is that there's going to have to be competition with every other baseball team. It's a lot easier to say, oh, the Toronto Blue Jays need this, that, and whatever. But then you actually go out in reality and have to try to make these moves and make these transactions with accounting for all the real life factors of what the other team's offering. Do you have the prospect pool to be able to pull these trades off? Just what a team needs. What do the other teams want? Do they want LB talent? Do they want prospects? There's a lot that goes into it. It's a lot easier to say, oh, this team needs a power bat. They need an ace. They need that. They need this. But to actually do it and go and make those transactions, a lot harder, obviously, said than done.
And Carter, we don't want to be one of those teams that are just acquiring anybody to acquire anybody, because we saw that happen with some of the Blue Jays players from last season that got picked up, and it ended up being horrible for those other teams they go to. So we don't want to be a team that does that either. And then we regret trading these guys or just picking up randos because we're like, oh, that team's a seller. Let's grab somebody that's been good this season from them. Well, it doesn't always go too well. I do think it's going to be a crazy trade deadline. I don't know. I just feel like this is the time for the Toronto Blue Jays to give her a run. The AL is not that strong. Carter, you said it the other day. You said the AL is not very strong. Maybe it is the time. And you know what? I sort of did some looking into it. I think it's anybody's ball game right now. And if that's the case, take a shot. But it's got to be a good one.
That's the thing. They're going to have to see where Ross Atkins and this front office wants to put their cards, wants to put their chips. I think they're going to definitely be buyers at this deadline. Like, that's kind of something we didn't even really address off the top, because I think the sentiment is they're going to make some sort of moves at the deadline. At absolute worst case, they're going to hold. Yeah. I don't really see them doing that at all. They're definitely not going to sell unless they go on a generational losing streak. And then at that point, you're going to have to check in on my mental health. But I think it is pretty clear cut. This team is going to be a buyer at the trade deadline. The question that is going to have to be answered is, how aggressive are they going to be at this trade deadline? And I was doing just some looking, and it is pretty early on. The trade deadline does not come until the end of July, so we still are over a month away. But there was an article that came out from Mark Feinsand that he did have a couple of options for the Toronto Blue Jays. Again, we'll have to see how this kind of plays out, but these are some guys the Toronto Blue Jays could be interested in. First one is from the Marlins, not Sandy. It's not the guy that you might think. It is Edward Cabrera, a little bit of a younger guy. Hasn't necessarily had the best season, but if you need that fourth or fifth guy in your starting rotation, that could be an option there. Kyle Finnegan from the Washington Nationals. You're probably going to see a ton of trade rumors about this guy. 3.12 ERA and 26 appearances. Nationals probably not going to be that good of a baseball team. Pretty big ground ball pitcher as well. He's in the 65th percentile in ground ball rate, so I guess it's not the greatest, but you can't hit home runs if you're hitting the ball on the ground. Freddie Peralta is an interesting one for this Toronto Blue Jays team. Feinsand has the Blue Jays as the number one potential fit for Freddie Peralta. This could be a guy that I would probably have above Jose Berrios. I'd probably have over Chris Bassitt. And the way that Kevin Gausman is pitching, maybe this is that caliber guy that you would throw in a game one. Not going to, again, blow the doors off of people necessarily, and you would have to give up quite a bit to get him from the Brewers, and that is even if the Brewers are selling. But I think this would make a lot of sense for the Toronto Blue Jays. They do have him as well in 2026 on a pretty good contract. And those are the three guys that I have from this article. There's a bunch of other guys that can be thrown into this. Like, it depends if you want to power about. There's some bullpen guys. The Pirates are a team that you might have to look at. I think the Cardinals, if they could start kind of, falling apart, there's some guys that you can get from there. Eric Fetty's a guy. Ryan Helsley is going to be a guy that is on the trade deadline market as well. So maybe that's something that we got to start doing a little bit. It's like wishing some downfalls on some of these NL teams, especially because the NL is a lot better than the AL is. You have some of these teams fall off. There is some pitchers that Toronto Blue Jays could look to acquire. And that's another big thing too, that I'll kind of end it with this, is that last year it was a seller's market. The Toronto Blue Jays got a ton for Yusei Kikuchi, got a ton for pretty much everyone that they traded away. You're going to have to see how this market goes as well. If there's only a couple teams with good starters that are selling at the trade deadline, that's only going to be harmful to the Toronto Blue Jays and what they have to give up for some of these pitchers. So again, there's so much that goes into it. So nice to have this conversation, but it's definitely pretty hard to predict this early on with so many things, kind of unsettled with a lot of these baseball teams.
Yeah, and you know what? This is why we have conversations like this on days coming off of an off day, because we have no game to recap, and it gives us a little bit of time to spew thoughts and think and come together on some bigger topics. So it is fun. And you know what? The Cardinals, I think, are a great one. That's one I think I mentioned like a week or two ago, was saying that that's a team that I would look at. So for them, for me, it's right now Cardinals and the D-backs. Peralta, I like that one as well. I think that that's an interesting one. I might take a look into that and see, what could be coming down the pipeline here. But in saying all of that, we do have a series to preview. So, Carter, I think let's take a quick break. Let's come back and, of course, get into the series preview.
Today's episode is sponsored by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. One thing that Braden realized with Monarch Money is that he buys a ton of baseball hats, whether it's Jays hats, not even just baseball hats in general. He's got about a million of those things. He got Monarch Money, realized that he was spending a ton on hats, and it solved absolutely nothing for him. But there is some other options for you guys as well, whether it's food, whether it's clothes, It could be whatever. If you guys have some spending habits that you're looking to kind of get under control, Monarch Money will definitely make those clear to you. Whether you act on them is up to you, obviously. Braden hasn't been, but we encourage you guys to be in control of your budgeting and be in control of your spending. So you can take control of your finances today with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year.
Well, Blue Jays Guardians, once again, here we go. Starts, obviously, today. It's Eric Lauer versus Allen. Then you got, obviously, the big game, Max Scherzer and his return versus Williams. And then game 3, Carter, I do have Tanner Bybee for the Guardians. And then who would that make it for the Jays?
Should be Kevin Gausman.
Should be Gausman. Yeah. It's unconfirmed right now, but that's probably what it's going to end up being. It's an interesting series, and I think it all stems from the fact that you go from an Eric Lauer start right into what could be unsettling Max Scherzer start for the reasons we talked about in the first segment. So I don't know. Where are your sort of thoughts and feelings on this one? Again, we just saw the Guardians not too long ago. So how do you think it could go a similar way?
Yeah, with this series, it really just depends on what Max Scherzer kind of gives for this baseball team. I don't love how they have Eric Lauer and then Scherzer. I would have loved to have Kevin Gausman in the middle. Like Max Scherzer's already missed, a ton of baseball games. What's one more? Maybe throw him on that Thursday start. I don't know if it's like a matchup thing. I'm not sure exactly why they landed on that Wednesday start, but that's something that I don't necessarily love coming out of the weekend into the series. But I think if you're the Jays right now, you lost the series to the Chicago White Sox. Would have been not okay with it, but it would have been more acceptable if you lose the series to the Guardians, you beat the Chicago White Sox. Now I think you kind of have to win this series. I think you got to bounce back from that White Sox series. I think you do have to take 2 out of 3 here. I'm not very, I don't know. There's so much uncertainty with Max Scherzer. I don't feel great about putting a win on that game. So I'll go with 1 and 3. I think if you can win the first game with the Lau show out there, and then Kevin Gausman, who has been a little bit unpredictable this season, hopefully he can come out there and give you a good start. I think you need to take 2 out of 3 in the series.
I couldn't agree with you more. But will it happen? I don't know. Because I could also go and see, and Max Scherzer goes out and pitches a gem, and this team rallies behind the return of Max Scherzer to win that game, and the offense goes nuts. I think this is a hard one to predict. And I'm going to go 2 of 3 as well, but I'm going to say it's going to be a sort of back-end win here on Max Scherzer and Kevin Gausman. And as good as the Lau show has been, I've talked about it a little bit lately, that I'm sort of waiting for the other shoe to drop with this one. Will it happen? I hope not, because he has been good. But I also feel like I got to be a little realistic when it comes to that. And as much as I want Eric Lauer to have a 2.3 ERA the whole season, I just don't know if it's going to happen. So I think at some point it's going to happen. Will it be this game? I don't know. But again, I'm praying for 2 or 3 here.
Yeah, get your revenge. You lost a series 2 out of 3 to the Guardians. Let's make it a 500 split against this Guardians team, especially when you have a series against the Red Sox, against the Yankees coming up. You don't want to lose the momentum right before 2 of the bigger series of your year, especially that Yankee series, Canada Day weekend. You got a 4-game set there. You want to be playing a good brand of baseball going into that game, because that could be the difference between an AL East, maybe, pennant, or possibly not even really contending for a wild card spot. If you drop a lot of those games, that could be the make or break it point of your season. So you want them to play a good brand of baseball. You want them to just, continue, I guess, not the momentum necessarily, but you continue with the more consistency that they have been showcasing, especially from the start of the season. You just want some good performances from, a guy like Max Scherzer, a guy like Kevin Gausman, hasn't necessarily been the greatest recently. So the pitching matchups, not the most confident in, but got to take the Toronto Blue Jays on every given day, because that's the baseball team that we cover. Why are we going to pray on their downfall?
Exactly. As always, guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We'll be back with you guys every day of the week, Monday to Friday. So we'll be here. As always, thanks a bunch, guys. We'll talk to you later. Have a good rest of your week. Carter, my man, anything else before we kick out of here? No, let's just be excited for Max Scherzer, whether it goes really well, whether it doesn't go well. Not every team has the ability to say a multi-Cy Young winner can pitch for their baseball team, no matter, even though they are 40 years old. Just get excited for it and just be optimistic about a Max Scherzer start. There's no need to pray on the guy's downfall when, again, he's only thrown 3 innings. I know we weren't the most positive in this episode necessarily, but I'm optimistic, and I'm just going to live in the moment and be excited that Max Scherzer is pitching for our baseball team. Just want to say thank you guys for watching. I'll talk to you guys again tomorrow.